This morning, we are joined by nominated Senator Veronica Maina. She's here in the hot seat. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm blessed.
Good.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for coming.
Good morning to the listeners.
Good morning.
Looking forward to engage.
Karibu sana. Dr. Luchetu Likaka is a governance and security consultant and also joins us this morning. Good morning.
Morning to you.
Good to have you in the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here. And good morning to our listeners.
Karibu sana. Post-election realignments is some of the stuff that we're looking at this morning. But before that, Dennis has a proverb today. I would love to hear your interpretation of this one.
The proverb comes from Ndu's homeland, so the western part of the continent, West Africa. And it says, a fool has to say something. A wise person has something to say. How would you interpret that?
Wow. Repeat again. A fool has?
A fool has to say something.
Yeah.
A wise person has something to say.
Wow. That's profound. A fool has to say something because they feel the need to fill in the gap. They just speak to speak. And unfortunately, it exposes the ignorance. But a wise person has content to share. So they can share their wisdom, the King Solomon style. So a wise person actually has content which people are looking for.
Right.
But for a fool, it's competition. I mean, there is a speech, people are speaking, so I have to speak. Yeah, sometimes somebody doesn't even have to say anything.
Yes, true.
Just silence can speak louder.
Absolutely.
Dr.
I think my interpretation would be that a wise person rarely speaks, but then a fool will actually say anything, because from that, a fool will just explain whatever he wants to say, but a wise person will obviously keep silent. Yeah, so it goes deeper.
Wow.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, for me...
There's even power in silence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Power over a situation and power over somebody as well. All right. So let's look into this. That we thought coming out of a by-election, many things would happen. That was, given, it was granted. That we would see positions taken and we would see directions then taken moving forward. Maybe what we didn't expect was that there would be very quick realignments almost immediately after, and that there were people whose allegiances or whose alignments somehow moved in a certain direction in this one day of a by-election. Or maybe that one day of a by-election was the day that showed people's true colors, as it were. Many could go in whatever different direction, but we'll start with you, Senator, that we saw very quickly that the whip of the Senate was removed and replaced. Yes. Yeah, and that happened really quickly. And the reason that was given was because he seemed to not be in the party, as it were, anymore. Is that the case?
He's in the party, but his allegiance had since moved, and for some time, because he seemed to have changed his allegiance and alignment. And you see political parties, the currency in political parties is loyalty. Loyalty, support, believe in the ideology of the party. Of course, anchored in our very laws that you can only belong to one political party at any one given time.
Yeah.
And that was a law that was put in place so that, first of all, you can check issues of, you remember the party hopping business that was there before?
Yeah.
I think it was intended to tame that party hopping and people failing to take full responsibility of their political decisions. Because once you take a political decision, it should ride with responsibility. Those are obligations undertaken in the party, because the party also goes out of its way to support a candidate, give the ticket that then helps the candidate to buoy to victory or to buoy to failure. It does either way. Your choice of political party determines, in many, many areas, can determine whether you're going to win or you're going to lose. So once the party puts its resources out to the use of a candidate, you're using the symbol, you're using the popularity, and if you're in a stronghold of a party, what happens is that 40% of the campaign is done by the party, just by having the right ticket. And that's why we tell even women, when you're in a certain stronghold, look out for the ticket that will buoy you to victory. So it makes your work easier. So having then expended resources on a candidate or on a person, the party does expect to a very great extent loyalty. So when that test fails, the currency wins off. It wins off. I think it was long waiting to happen.
So it was not. It was
but
not
then
an
now
issue of
the
this
by-election, because of the heat of the by-election, there was much more speeches, much more maybe very frontal attacks to one another as the candidates were competing. So I think it brought out the fact that it's like keeping the stubborn, disobedient son in the house. There are days even the mother will say, do you know something? There's no dinner tonight for you. You'll be out. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Senator, I will still ask on the same now. So here's the fact that if you look at constitution and how it's been, party constitutions and how it's been put in place, there is internal disciplinary mechanisms that would take place ordinarily.
Yes.
And with that, then do we expect that the party would further take further measures against these candidates, these individuals? And would these also include sanctions within the party, other than just in the Senate?
I would say that the party does have a code of conduct, and it has structures and organs within the constitution. And yes, the party can take a disciplinary action against a candidate or a member of parliament, but there is a process that has to be followed. First, there has to be a complaint. Someone has to go and complain that this member has gone way off the code of conduct, they have breached it, and these are the rules they have breached, and we have evidence. So they will table that before the organ, the disciplinary committee, and then the disciplinary committee will give a notice to the person who is accused, and then the person will be given a right to respond to the allegations before them. But somebody must go in, complain, they have to do a letter or do a petition, and then they have to, once that complaint is filed, it goes through the normal motions, and the disciplinary organ takes over and now makes a determination after having had both parties.
But then one would ask the question, if the member already has been stripped of the positions, we've seen all the changes in the Senate, is based off a complaint. Someone is expressing displeasure by how they acted. Then what are we waiting for if already we're taking action? Dr.
You see, when you're given a position by the party, it's, for instance, in Parliament now, it's the members of that party, like the Kenya Kwanza now, or the UDA. Let's say the UDA, actually, because it was within the UDA. They were holding that position. It's the members in Parliament who have affirmed that leadership of that person and who will vote in, communicate to the Speaker. And it's the same members who can remove that communication or change that communication or make changes based on how they feel they'll be more effective in Parliament. Because you can imagine if somebody holds a top position and doesn't agree with the philosophy of the party, you don't know whether maybe tomorrow, if they're given an assignment by the party, whether they're able to dispense it. So it's going to hamper maybe the effectiveness of how the parliamentary group is in pushing the agenda for the party. So it's a natural progression of the rules. It's a natural progression of how things worked, because these are issues that are based on relationships. How are you relating with the party? How are you relating with the leadership? How are you relating with the people? Are the members comfortable to be represented by you in view of the positions you hold? So I don't think there is any love lost when somebody has already walked ahead. Like they have moved on. So the party needs to move on.
Okay.
Well.
Dr. Likaka, when we look at this from a broad stroke, politics to an extent is really about perception. And that what you hear somebody saying could then fuel what you think they will do in the future. Is it just an errant individual in a party that has been removed? Or is there a broader picture being painted here across Kenya's politics?
Thank you so much. I think this is not new and it was expected. Why? Because the ruling coalition saw it coming. From the failed, what I can call that the nomination was not very good, for example, in Malaba. And there was this bone of contention there that Khalwale had actually expressed. And therefore it was expected that indeed, if Khalwale will go against the party, then the best thing is that actually remove him from that position. But the big picture is that the ruling coalition has to move quickly to kind of punish the dissenting voices, to consolidate power, or to show that indeed that is required of them, so that they can actually whip everybody else in terms of retaining power. The big picture, again, in this perspective, is that looking at the ruling coalition and the wind that is actually blowing around the nomination and how the by-election actually took place, there are several concerns that don't bring out the ruling coalition in good light. And the much that the coalition can actually do is actually to whip the likes of Khalwale. Khalwale has read the signs on the ground. And God forbid, he is going for the governor seat in Kakamega. If he has read the signs well, then he is likely to capture that seat, not necessarily under UDA. And the big picture again is that how do you justify, for example, the challenges that the candidates, opposition candidates have actually faced in Malaba because of the government? There are many issues around how the government conducted itself in this by-election. And therefore, this is what is actually going to affect even all the other seats. And we've seen it across board. I'm seeing a scenario where you are actually got with the enemy, and therefore you must run quickly to consolidate your house. You must show power, because if you don't show power, the next thing is everybody else will actually be running away from the coalition. Because this is a scenario where if you don't rein in on this member and the much they have actually done, and maybe others are going also to be removed from different positions because they want to consolidate power to prepare themselves. And that will send a strong signal to who would be interested in dropping the interest in the party.
We often know that parties are vehicles through which you can push particular political agenda vis-a-vis what the origin of what political parties were supposed to do, bringing together like minds around a particular issue and saying, let's push this and see if we can get into government to make sure some of these issues are implemented. That's what political parties are meant to do in the first place. We've seen that political parties have been used, though, however, to institute individuals into positions of power. So we kind of do the reverse from the original idea of political parties, kind of. Do we see this likely to change? I mean, and how do you think of this, Veronica, where you imagine that right now what we will see, whether we like it or not, that if somebody sees that their position may be dwindling, they will either do one of two things. They will go independent, or they will go and form another party that would likely push their agenda. Do we see that the center is remaining together, or are people going to be moving in different directions?
Let me say this. The by-elections have shocked people, have shocked the perception that you're talking about, because politics is about perception. And first of all, let me express my surprise at what our doctor here has already mentioned. Because he's looking at the by-elections in with the pessimism that I see with many people. He's not first admitting that the party that makes government won in Malava and won in Bere North. And many people had blogged, written, sent social media posts, just disguising themselves as winners or trying to create a euphoria that they were winning and that the government of the day is so unpopular and that they were never going to capture those seats. And the fact that UDA captured the seat in Bere North, captured the seat in Malava, shocked many people, including my friend here, the doctor.
Were you shocked, Doc?
They were shocked.
Okay.
I wasn't.
And this is the
Of shock.
And this is the shock that might await many people in 27. But I think right now, the by-elections were a good test. And any by-election anywhere in the world becomes a very huge test to the sitting government, to the sitting ruling party, because usually the politics of oppositions are easier to play than the politics of the government, because the opposition, you only need to walk to the road, go to Mombasa Road right now and say there is a pothole, so government is not working. So it becomes easier for opposition politics. But for government, they
Also
have
much
the
more
heavier
difficult if there actually is a
responsibility.
pothole, Veronica.
I'm just saying, for example, they just need to find a little thing and their politics for the day is done. They don't need to use any resources. They don't need to convince anybody about procurement processes when government projects are being rolled out. It's much easier to critique. Even here, I can walk in and just say, I don't like the color of this studio. So it becomes easier for me as a critique than the one who has to repaint the studio to suit the colors that people are looking for. So, and having said that, what I would say is that the perception, especially like, for instance, in the Mount Kenya, immediately started changing because there were these seemingly big, I think you had the concept of Goliath, seemingly big positioning of certain individuals, showing as though we got it all together, we are cutting away these seats. And I think the quick lessons we have learned on both sides is that people have to go back to the drawing board and strategize, because what the opposition right now, the united opposition, which is a bit disunited, what they thought is that they were going to corner the UDA and the Kenya Kwanza to a point where they will have no seats. But the reverse became the story. And that's why you saw very quick realignment, because everybody has to put their house in order. Because if you don't put your house in order in 2027, things will be tougher. The only bit that I have big exceptions on is use of very, violent goons, the use of goons, that I don't like at all. And I will never support use of any form of violence in politics. Because if
we
you
know
want
that
to
this is being done by all sides.
If you become a leader, by the way, I don't care who is doing it. I don't support it. I will not care. If it happens in my camp, I rebuke it. If it happens in the opposition camp, I still will wake up and rebuke it. Because especially for women, we cannot do politics like that. We do not want the story of goons being used within the politics of the day. And I think you had even the president asking the IG to take a very firm position on the use of goons, because if we are then using the goons, then we don't need the constitution, we don't need the law. We must reach a point as Kenyans to know, once you document, you legislate, you have rules, they exchange for you. Rules are an exchange for the stones and the machetes and the pangas and the rungus and the and any form of arm. That's why we exchange with written down rules to say that's the far you can go.
Okay.
Beyond that, you can't.
Sorry, Dr. Likaka, from an analytic point of view, Senator has said that it's clear what the people's choice was, that, UDA won here, the ruling party won here. Is that the sentiment on the ground? Remember, we said perspective. Is that the sentiment on the ground?
Allow me to put it this way. Yes, we had shambolic by-election. We didn't have free and fair election as per the law. Let's be honest. The resources that the government has actually put in Malabo and Bere can actually do for us the road from Rironi to Nakuru. The intimidations.
Does he have facts on that?
These are facts. I'll be able to lay them on the table. Let's see. The use of Ngao in Malaba, for example, in Mbeere. Today, as we speak, the Deputy President and Rugu should actually be a guest of the state for violating electoral laws. And this is actually very clear within our laws what the role of the government officers are supposed to do. We have seen this even in Kabuchai. We've seen this even in Magarini. What we need to agree with, for instance, is that yes, they have won with that margin, 1,000 votes, for example, 500 votes, for example, because of the intimidation, because of the state machinery, misuse of resources. IEBC has failed to rein in. Yes, in Kasbul, they tried with the issue of fines. But what about the state misuse of resources? This is something that we see, even if you talk about this by-election being a signal to 2027. They are not, I can tell you. The ground is different. We need to be honest to ourselves. I know the senator will actually push for the position of the government, but we need to be realistic. I don't support the opposition. I don't support the government, but I want to put it very clearly that if it was free and fair, then we'll have had different results. Look at the voter turnout, for example. Look at the concerns around goons that were actually brought in. And I want to take you back to history. Immediately, the president had an arrangement with the late Prime Minister. We saw the president go to Mathare and other places with goons. This is something that I see the president coming out to say, please rein in on them. I'll have asked the president, please rein in on his own people, first of all, because of the misuse of the state machinery in running these by-elections. If we have to be fair to the opposition, we want them to play a role in our politics, just like any other player, then we have to go back and change the way we are actually doing our politics, because the ruling coalition actually messed up everything against the law. And there are many examples all over. We have seen the resources they have put in, the voter bribery, the intimidations, and this is something the senator may not agree with, but I can assure you these by-elections are not a reflection of what is actually coming up in 2027.
Let me say something.
That's when we'll be shocked.
Even a right of rebuttal on that issue. I was in Mbeere. I did not meet a single chief or a single DCC being used, because we did not require to do that. That's why the members of the party were supporting the candidate, because we could do that. Because once you begin your campaign, you can choose whoever you wish to support the candidate. But I know for a fact, that J.B. Muturi was captured slapping, actually almost suffocating a voter. Did you see that video going round? So if you're talking about goonism, I want us to be honest as Kenyans, so that we stop hiding behind certain facades and refusing to deal with the issues that are ailing us. Indeed, I can tell you for a fact, the running battles, if you saw anything happening in a place like Mbeere, you will find that the people who are running those goons were actually on the opposition side. What was J.B. Muturi doing to that voter? And I'm hoping that case will be taken up, because he's held one of the highest positions in the country, so that if there was anyone to do that, it wouldn't have been a person of his stature. I think it's a very bad example to our young people. And let's be honest, let's face it. Let's stop driving narrative just for the sake of driving narrative, because if you just drive a narrative without looking at the facts, you will actually not get it. They even attempted to manage gates at polling centers in Mbeere. And we also saw what happened in Malaba. I think we need to face the reality, so that we do not get to the position where Tanzania has found itself in. We need to be very clear, what is it we are doing? And the beauty about Kenya is that a voter holding a vote can be persuaded by a politician. And what you will find happened during these by-elections is that there was a lot of wooing the voter, talking to the voter, persuading the voter, on the position, persuading the voter, for instance, our side, to work with the government so that the projects that are being done can be pushed to the end. There was nothing beyond,
Beyond
there was nothing beyond that. But if we look at it using the perspective that Daktari is using right now, we'll have missed the point, because then we'll not be able to tame some of those things which I think should now be managed.
Senator, how would you, we've spoken in terms of the opposition and all that, but when you look about the positions that have been given in terms of regulations that are given by IEBC, there is also the law that has to be read together in terms of public officers not being part and parcel of campaigning. But you see in places like Mbere, you see cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries campaigning openly against the law. You go to places like Malava, you see the Speaker of the National Assembly as well campaigning, which is against the law. As Member of Parliament for UDA and part of government, where do you stand with that when you see those that are serving under your government breaking the law, and we are saying that elections were free and fair? How is it free and fair when it's clear that a candidate is being supported by government, including public resources and government machinery? Where do you stand with that?
When we say the resources that are being utilized from the government side, first, it's important to point out so that we don't generalize the term resources. We need to come out clear and say the resources that have been deployed here, which we think this is government itself deploying.
Let's start with the government vehicles and fuel and security for these cabinet secretaries, and also cabinet secretaries being deployed there instead of being in their offices to work.
I will say this, that for instance in Bere, if you look at CS Roko, for instance, he's a person who will even have his own resources. He will have his own vehicle, and I don't think there's anything that stops him as a person. And you must understand the history of that seat. The history of that seat is that he was appointed, so he was like promoted from that position, given a CS position. And he lives there. He's a voter there. So the question you must ask yourself, him having come from Bere North, lived in Bere North, registered as a voter in Bere North, what is our expectation? So that we can be practical, even with the regulation that we are trying to apply on people. The ones that don't, because sometimes we put down regulations that may not even work because imagine he has a right to vote. Does he have a right to vote?
Yes, he's a voter.
He has a right to vote. So are we saying that he cannot walk and vote in his station?
Yes, that's what the law says.
Yes.
As a
cabinet secretary.
He has taken an oath. He has taken an oath as a CS.
Okay, but listen to me.
Yes.
He's also taken, he's taken the oath to be a CS, but he also has a right to vote. So if he goes to his own constituency, which he has a very big interest in, because he was the one who was an MP in this area and was running certain projects within that area. How you now separate him from the voter, the resident, who is interested in development in that area, to the CS portfolio? Is it that you want to wake up and see him seated in the office throughout without taking an interest, even as a resident of Bere, to go and see this is what is happening? No. And
Senator,
this is my aspiration. Listen,
Senator,
you have to listen
question.
through. You must.
Could the cabinet secretary just walk in, vote and go home?
If you don't deal with the overlap of those responsibilities, we will never be fully able to answer the question on how far can they go and how far can they not go.
But there seems to have...
problem
I'm sorry, Senator, but
let me explain. The problem will be, and that's why I'm saying we have to come down with actual facts and say there are these resources which have come from this ministry that have been deployed specifically to this area. So you cannot question his presence in that area as a resident.
But this is the question
Even
here.
yourself.
I'm sorry, Senator. If we use the CS as an example, let's move that aside. How much does it take to move the deputy president from one place to another? The deputy president is Kithure Kindiki. He was in Berry North for a long period.
And it is costly.
I'm asking a question.
He has a responsibility.
No. This is my question, Senator, please. How much does it take to move the deputy president on one day from Nairobi
It
to
depends
anywhere
on
else?
where he's moving, how he's moving.
In his capacity as deputy president, if he were to go to Berry North, does he move as an individual, a private individual, or does he move as a deputy president?
He's a deputy president.
Yes.
And I also want you to appreciate the fact that he's also a deputy party leader. Are you aware of that?
I am aware of that.
He's a deputy party leader.
When he is moving from Nairobi to Berry North, staying in Berry North, openly campaigning very clearly, is his role separated? Is his role as deputy president then separated from his role as deputy party leader?
Would you deny him the right to act as a deputy party leader?
I'm sorry, Senator. I need you to answer the question.
That's the one I'm answering you. I'm helping you with the answer. I'm helping you with the answer. Every day of his life, he's still deputy president. He will deserve to be protected in that position of deputy president, because you can imagine if you exposed him to any risk, the disadvantage of exposing him to any risk would outweigh any advantage you would have by saying let him not move with his security.
Based on a choice that he's taken to be in Berry North.
You know, the law allows, if the law didn't allow him to be a deputy party leader, it would specifically put it down in writing that you cannot be a deputy president and a deputy party leader at the same time. So if he's performing, let me finish. If he's performing his role as the deputy party leader, are you going then to say you cannot be here because you're a deputy president and you cannot do your role as a deputy party leader?
Yes.
He has a right. Every political party, he has a right. And what has made him ascend to that position of deputy president is his ranking and his positioning within the UDA party. Why am I bringing out those two roles together? Because unless we put it in legislate and say, even as a deputy president, once you become deputy president, you can no longer play the role of deputy party leader. So if he goes, for instance, to support, the one thing we would need to demonstrate is that in his support of this candidate, he has used specific resources taken from here, taken to the candidate, but his own personal resources, nothing stops him, or using the party resources, nothing stops him. By the way, do you know the political parties are funded by public resources?
Okay, yes. I'm sorry, I need to ask Doctor this question here for some demarcation.
Political parties are
How
funded.
can we make the split
So
to
we are
be
just
very clear?
assuming.
To be very clear about what you cannot or can do. It seems as though sometimes
We
we're
need
not
to
really,
have more rules.
It seems like the rules that we have we don't follow. How do we add more to them? I guess that would be the question. The rules that are available, we can't seem to adhere by them.
Thank you so much. We need to be aware that our politics are not based on principle. That's number one. Number two, we need to be aware that our politicians do not obey or follow the political parties' act and the electoral laws. And that's what we have seen, how it has played out in the by-election. Even distinguishing between state resources and personal resources in the context of my humble senator explaining, it may not come out. The reality is, even as a state officer, you are already a government resource.
Yes.
You are using government resources by the fact that you are a deputy president, or you are Speaker of the National Assembly, or you are leader of your prime cabinet secretary. My good example I want to give, for instance, in Malaba, we saw the prime cabinet secretary dishing out positions to those ones who lost in nomination.
Yes.
That's a clear indication of how the government was meddling with the whole process. The other good example is the deputy president in Mbere and the CS Rugu. Even if you want to distinguish Rugu as an individual or the CS, you cannot, because
he's actually a voter.
Even if he's a voter, he has taken an oath to be a CS, and that is expected behavior of a CS as per the law. And this is the problem we are having with the ruling coalition. The reality of the matter is the government cannot distinguish itself from a government and a principle that they're supposed to obey the law. They're the first one violating the law. How can a whole speaker of National Assembly go to campaign in Malaba? He is still holding a position as a party leader of Fort Kenya. He has a candidate in Kabuchai where he lost. The reality of the matter is, we need to rein in and help the government to behave by following the law. And that's why I've said they should be candidates of the state as having violated the Political Parties Act and the electoral laws. And this is the plain truth. Even the difference, for example, in Mbeere of 500, I know very well it could be coming from the fact that there was so much intimidation and there were very many goodies. The distribution of blankets, the maize, all these goodies coming from government. Is that personal from government, personal coffers? The reality of the matter, which we need to help our humble senator to appreciate, is that there is a problem. We need to rein in and help the government and all other players within the political space to obey the law. That's the only way we can actually have free, fair election. And that's the spirit we need to have as a country.
Senator, the question that I have is simple. The regulations that are given by IEBC is for all players to play by the rules, right? Mm-hmm. And with that, then, the electoral regulations, one would say, during the period that we have the by-elections is law. Mm-hmm. And anyone who goes against those laws is liable.
Yes.
Right? If we see that the very same regulations that have been put in place are not being followed, then is that room enough for the candidates who are violating the same to be struck out, to be punished by IEBC? And if we see that it is government that is peddling or is going against the regulations that have been put in place, what are we doing to the credibility of IEBC, and what are we telling Kenyans? That there are those who are above the law?
You know, IEBC should be IEBC.
Mm-hmm.
And IEBC is the one that has the mandate to oversee and ensure that elections are peaceful, they are free, they are fair, and they are supposed to be independent. That's why it begins with independent. Now, how the IEBC behaves, they will be perceived, seen, and judged based on how effective they are as IEBC. And a lot is expected from them, and I wouldn't say it's not expected. It is the work of the IEBC to see which party has defied which rules or breached which rules. And I want us to reach a position where, when Dr. Luchetu comes here and says that government officials have done this, have done that, we want to see more concrete action and more concrete support to allegations, so that if you feel this was defied, and you know public resources are subject to audit all the time, they are subject to the Auditor General's assessment of whether they are healthy or not healthy, take action. Let's help one another. Go and say, I feel this was done wrong and the breach on this rule is this one. Then we can gauge based on that, because if we only lament, we must exit the lamentation camp. IEBC, we saw IEBC penalize Kasipul candidates with a very hefty fine, which has never happened before in IEBC. And I was quite actually happy that everybody was told there is a line you cannot cross. And if I was IEBC, I would be very keen to implement the rules. But who will implement the rules for IEBC?
So you do agree,
IEBC.
Senator, so you do agree that there are rules that have been abrogated here? You've just said that you would ask IEBC to make sure they implement the rules.
Let me say something.
No, please.
At no point...
Sorry, Senator. So are you saying that there are indeed rules that have been abrogated and that you're calling on the IEBC to actually come in and do their job?
I think you listen to me keenly, because I'm here to explain myself. I have said I saw IEBC do something in Kasipul. Was it in Kasipul? They gave very hefty fines.
Prior to the by-election.
Prior to the by-election. I saw, and I've worked closely with IEBC as a Secretary General of the UDA. I know IEBC takes action, even warning candidates. But the hardest fine I've ever seen IEBC give was the one that was given in Kasipul, unless any other is brought to my attention.
Do you know why they gave that fine?
Yes.
Do you know what was it for?
It was for parties who were breaching the code.
What was the reason? What was the reason for that fine?
It
does matter.
Let me say this.
I'm sorry, Senator, but it does matter. Do you know the reason why they gave this fine?
Yes, because of the parties had breached the code of conduct.
By doing what?
What is the point is, this was the point I was trying to drive.
There's a reason I'm asking this question.
IEBC took action on what they felt had gone beyond the parties had become violent or whatever culture the parties had picked up. I don't have the specifics of the case, the specific nitty-gritty detail, but I know a fine was imposed on the candidates.
The reason I'm asking you this, Senator. There's a reason I'm asking the question, and if you don't answer the question, then it becomes difficult for us to get to a place where we can see the reasoning. The thing here is that if the IEBC levied a penalty that you have talked about just now on issues that were not as serious as the ones that happened during the by-election, why did we, because what we're hearing from the IEBC today on the issues that happened during the by-election, Malava, as Dr. quoted here, Magarini, looking into parts of Narok, looking into Kasipul, again, where members of parliament even were injured. Things happened significantly worse than what happened in Kasipul before that. But do you know what we're hearing from the IEBC now? That they've handed it over to the security agencies and they're waiting for their report. Why don't we see the same kind of action for something that happened that was gravely worse than
it's a
before?
Good question. It's a good question. The only problem is that you're cornering me to take responsibility for IEBC,
not to take responsibility, but to give
I'm giving you from my perception. Yeah, and I won't give answers that exactly fit into the answer you expect from me. I will give you the answers that I believe in and the ones that I have analyzed the situation and seen it to be. I won't fit within a certain box. I'm saying this, and I have no problem with IEBC calling parties to order, and they must do so before 2027. What I have a problem with is a lamentations culture, a lamentation culture where you come and say, your friend here is actually slapping people, but nobody has taken the initiative to go and report that I'm being assaulted by Tim or John or whoever it is. Why are we having a lamentation culture? How do we even help IEBC to take action and penalize people? I don't want to read it in the newspaper 20 times. Let somebody take action and say, I'm offended, this is what happened. And that's why I need you also, when I come on radio, that you listen to me through the answer. It may not suit exactly what you're expecting, but hear my perspective. Lamentation culture will not help IEBC. IEBC may not have capacity to investigate. If they want to investigate, they may need the assistance of an investigation body, because when you are injured or you are hurt during a campaign, the first place you land in is to report the occurrence is entered. So when IEBC, for instance, says we want the investigation on this particular aspect where we do not have capacity to do, is that a problem? That's not the problem. The problem is coming to radio station, coming to TV stations, doing all our lamentations, action not being taken on specific, what you're complaining about, because I support IEBC to be firm on candidates. That's my philosophy, by the way, and it's never changed. From the day I was in the political parties, I drove a culture of peace, a culture of free from violence, a culture of where a voter walks into a station. By the way, I'm very uncomfortable, not just with a slap during elections or by-elections, even an insult, even a verbal insult. I am a believer in a respectful persuasion of a voter to support a certain candidate without having any form of intimidation, Senator, or coercion. So I was almost feeling now misunderstood, Ndu, by yourself, because the one thing I promote, we can't even have women being balanced with men in leadership in parliament if we don't eliminate the culture of violence, both online and physically.
Senator, these lamentations that you talk about, we
must go beyond lamentations.
We presented the same to IEBC. We presented the same to Commissioner Lutalala here yesterday. And in the report that they gave in Kasipul, they called out civil servants, public officers, against being on campaign trail. That they did in their report as they were giving the warning to the two candidates in Kasipul. But as we look at that alone, paints a picture, Daktari, of a political class that does not care what the law is. It paints of a picture where we know this is the line, but we will cross the red tape anyway because Mtadu You know, and this is the problem, because remember, as IEBC gazettes all these rules, the rules have become law, and one would not sit and say that the regulations is a suggestion. It is a law, and everyone ought to follow them and respect them. But we choose to play outside the rules simply because we think we have power, simply because we think we have influence, and that IEBC will not do anything.
And
Alutalala said he has a problem with the political class that does not follow the law.
Allow me to put it this way. The senator is aware that she belongs to the ruling coalition. The ruling coalition is playing outside the law. It's not lamentation. I expect the government to call itself into order and obey the law. I'm happy the president did not come clearly to campaign in Malaba. He was actually at a distance.
He didn't need to.
But we can see clearly all state machinery actually out to campaign in all these by-elections. And my concern here, the IEBC is actually a weakling. It is not independent. It is weak. It is weak in the sense that it cannot execute its mandate if it's not supported by the state machinery. Here, the executive has actually to support it by providing necessary resources, including provision of the fact that they can actually have a way of dealing with security agents, so that the security agencies can actually support whatever IEBC is raising concern on. They arrest those people, they take them to court. That one, they have not received that support. They are not independent in the sense that if the state themselves are actually, the state itself is actually a participant, the state itself is violating the law. How will IEBC call out the deputy president, or call out CS Rugu, or call out Wetangula in this case? That's my concern. And I'm not just lamenting. This concern is actually something that the government has to go back and ask itself, are we doing the right thing as a government? And why I'm raising this concern, come 2027, if this is the level of intimidation, the violence, the bribery, if this is the scenario and this is the government, what will happen with the incumbent when it comes to 2027? And that's why I've said it's not a pointer to 2027. And we are not just lamenting. My interest is, let us see the spirit and the letter of the law when it comes to free and fair election. I'm looking forward that those ones who are going to court in terms of petitions, whether in Mbere or in Malaba, that they'll actually have enough evidence that we who are at a distance are able to pinpoint that they can actually take this through our court, and the court can actually see that it was not free and fair. In fact, if what happened in Kasipul led to the fines of 1 million, I would have expected even IEBC to nullify those results, because there were several concerns, and these ones will come out. Even the report yesterday by one of the public benefit organizations raised some of these concerns. I hope they can actually pick this to take them to court. What I'm calling upon is that let the government play within the rules. Let the government be the big brother to provide an atmosphere for us to grow our democracy. That's what UDA has failed to do for us.
Let me say this before he shouts from the rooftop about what UDA is failing. Because UDA has won, and we could as well be on that high rooftop screaming to everybody that we won. But we don't have to. When you win, you give us a proverb before we started the conversation today. You don't have to shout from the rooftop. When you're the victor, you need to be humble and let people know, even the one who did not win, it still belongs to the same nation, and you still need to be given service by the one who won. So I believe one of the solutions we must have is when one takes leadership from whichever party, we appreciate and acknowledge that even the ones who did not manage to get Ghana enough votes are still Kenyans and still need to be served, and the humility with which we take the victory. But having said that, let me say this. I always like an approach that looks for solutions to issues that we perceive are affecting us or affecting the effectiveness of any process that we are undertaking. And an electoral process is so important, and that's why you had, even when there was the NADCO negotiation, the national dialogue, one of those issues that dominated that conversation was electoral reforms. So in every conversation, when you hear people are speaking in different languages, you must ask yourself, what exactly is the problem? And we must analyze. If you don't analyze your problem, then you'll not be able to come up with solutions that then help. Is there a possibility that we have given regulations that are impractical or not pragmatic enough to meet the current need of how we are structured for electoral processes? Why do I ask that? Government is made up by a political party, right, wrong? So the people who make the political actors who make up government come from a political party. We appreciate that. I'm already raising the issue of CS Roko is a voter within Bere. Okay, so we have an overlap there. So could there be a possibility that even if, as we have said, the government is made up of political actors, that when we say this actor who is political and who has a party which is already running a candidate within that zone, we have already done an impractical thing to tell the person you are never supposed to be seen in the politics that got you into power?
Is that a license to break the law?
Why I'm asking that is because it could be a reason for us to rethink what structures are we having. What do we need to manage? What we need to manage is the public resources not to be misused.
I think because our time is also coming to an end, but I think it would be clear that even one of his cabinet colleagues, C.S. Murkomen, was very clear to Kenyans. So if in this case you're saying he's a voter and he was an individual, then he could have also heeded the words of C.S. Murkomen where he said, come, vote and go home. These are the words that he spoke on Wednesday evening. Yes. So if now you take the position that CS Roko is a voter in Beira like everybody else, then he should have actually heeded the words of the CS as well. But that leaves conversation for another day because we're already at 2 minutes past 8 o'clock. This is clearly something that needs to continue to be in the public eye.
What I wanted to raise is that a conversation needs to be had in Kenya for electoral reform so that we can adjust ourselves to what is practical between being a public officer, being a political actor who is holding office, courtesy of the politics that brought you into office, so that we separate those rules and make sure we protect the public resources while allowing the individuals who are public officers to still exercise their political rights in Article 38.
Dr. Likaka might ask you that at this point, Dennis as well, that those rules that currently exist should be adhered to before we try to make some more.
Yes. Yes.
But they need to be revised to be practical because we have an issue.
My conclusion, the government needs to play within the law. That one they need to stick to. Our concern is that we are applying double standards, and that's where the problem is. If, for example, C.S. Murkomen gave that directive,
he did.
How come the deputy president and the speaker and others are not obeying the law? That's why I have a problem with the government, because they should be playing the big brother part as having or running the government. That's why we go back to the Political Parties Act, and the concern will be who is actually the party leader and the deputy party leader. What's their role when they're actually in government? Maybe that's what the senator is raising. But if we are principled, then we'll differentiate and distinguish ourselves in terms of roles and responsibilities when it comes to how we are running a government and how we need to play our politics. The government has basically raped the Kenyan when it comes to issues of electoral laws. They have failed.
Because of time, we will not even allow Senator Veronica to make a statement on that because I know that she wants to.
Within the laws
Senator Veronica Maina, nominated senator, has been here with us this morning, and we want to say thank you for being part of this conversation. Dr. Luchetu Likaka is a governance and security consultant. Thank you, both of you, for being here this morning. Obviously, this is why discourse is important. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.